Welcome back to Map Making in Silvernell, where I make a battle map from within my homebrewed fantasy world of Silvernell. Today we'll continue our theater within the Artisan District of Winding City. I'll be using the program Inkarnate for this build, with music by Tabletop Audio. You can also find the links to this free map in the description below, one with a battle grid and one without. So in part 1, I conceptualized an entire theater arts center, essentially, and focused on the main stage and audience. So, today let's focus on the lobby. We'll start with the bathrooms. So I've already placed my walls over my outline, and I went ahead and painted the floor the same castle tile I used within the theater. So next up, I'll grab a table for our sinks, and give plenty of sink space for each restroom. I found some pale stone wall assets for the stalls. Leaving that front part open will show that it's a swinging door. And then I'll just copy and paste that to each wall, so I don't have to place each asset individually. Let's add a few more. And then I'll drop some trash baskets and some ferns, and I'll go ahead and make a note to use more of those ferns, as I like the low-cost decor this theater can employ, but it still looks high class. Go ahead and darken it up a little bit. It looks a little too bright. And after I add some light, then I'll go back over the floor and lighten up parts around that light. Perfect. A little decor in the hallway. And I also added that little wall up top to block off the hallway. It'll look nicer. Now for the ticket booth. I'm going to grab a glass bottle asset, make it really big and stretch it out, and that's going to be our window. I'll go ahead and cover it with a table and a rug so it doesn't look like a stretched out glass bottle. Cover those corners. Boom, now it looks like a window. I'll also put in this room a few boxes just to hold the tickets. Perfect. Now for this section in between, I debated at this part about what this small enclosure would be, and I think I settled on an art gallery. I imagine guests get their tickets and can wait here before the house opens. Inside here, I'll add some ornate statues, some lush couch seating, and some more regal statues to go with it. But first, a little carpet leading inside the theater. Most of the time these doors are closed, but I do want to have some ropes leading out from the door just to show this is the spot you're supposed to be at. Perfect. On this big wall covering up the bathrooms, I'll add these amazing hand-carved stone statues with lights pointing towards them. I'll add a little couch seating at the corners while you're waiting for your family members to finish using the restroom. And then go ahead and start adding that artwork. First a couple of statues, which I didn't really like two, so I just kept one. Let's make it a big deal, just that one. And for the wall, I'll add some large paintings. There wasn't a painting asset in Inkarnate, so I used a doorway, and then just altered the color. I think it looks good. Perfect. Now, before I continue moving forward in this lobby, I very quickly want to jump back into the theater. I want to add some more spotlights onto the stage. But also, this is going to give me a couple of doorways from that back hallway where my players, they can use it during combat. So they're not forced to run all the way down that hallway and use a dash in their movement to get through. Just breaking up again that monotony and making this a more dynamic playing space. Perfect. Now back inside the lobby, I'm going to start working on this tavern, or wine bar. I didn't want to use the rock walls, but instead went with the blue thin wall assets from within the theater. And these are much thinner and they appear more high class. And then I'll go ahead and continue to use those white stone tables. I'm going to divert this area off for a storage room, so it's just going to get a simple stone floor, nothing fancy, and then a bunch of storage crates and barrels. And there's no light in this room, so I'll go ahead and darken the whole room and darken those assets. None of the guests really see this area. Inside this tavern wine bar interior, I really tried to focus on making it appear as nice as possible. As opposed to a lot of seating space and drink options, this space should really evoke high-class wine sipping. So I'm only going to give a small selection of wine back on those tables, a few books for you to look at on these tables, and then some plants and some high-end artwork that I'll start to add more and more later when we come back to it. My fiance suggested this lobby should contain stand-up bar tables, so I'll use those tables here in this tavern and outside in that main lobby. We'll see more of that later. To tie in the theater colors to this tavern, I'll plant some blue flowers in these ferns. For this lobby fountain, I like the assets Inkarnate has, but I wanted it bigger, so I'm going to paint some water around the fountain and give it some small waterfalls off the side into that water. And then I'll use those thin blue wall assets as a short wall holding in all of the water and then cover that with ferns. So taking that small fountain asset and making it a much larger piece. I imagine this waterfall creates a relaxing, water rushing sound that echoes in this large chamber. This fountain is a visual and auditory delight when our guest first arrived. You can't miss this fountain. Looking good. Now let's go back and add those tables. Great suggestion. Perfect. Now, on this right side of the wall here, I remembered whenever I visit the theater, there's always a small stand with merchandise you can buy from the show. So I'll make one of those here and be sure to give it shelves full of knickknacks and such that reflect the show currently running inside. And that tavern looks pretty complete. I'm just going to add a few archways. And that's about it. Now on the outside of the playing space, I'm going to darken everything. So instead of having that orangish clay color, this takes the focus away from that area and really puts it into the playing space. Now as I was working on the lobby, I really found this area to be a dead space. I considered a meet and greet for actors, but I eventually settled on an administrator's office and a first aid room. And in between those two rooms will be a hallway that leads to backstage. I mean, perhaps actors could still come out after the show to sign autographs. So this top one will be the administrative room, where I'll just add a desk and table, maybe some artwork, a nice carpet, some ferns, where you can go in and talk, where hiring process is done, and where big decisions are made for this entire theater. And then for below in this first aid room, I just needed a simple bed where, a guest who's woozy can lay down, and a table where a nurse can just record her notes. Now in this corner up here, I needed something larger than life to be eye candy for the guest, but also keep them away from loitering in the corner. So I found a large banner and used a tall Egyptian statue with the color changed. And I imagine this is a display from the theater's current show, or maybe a past show that they really liked. So we're going to make sure to highlight that with some light. Perfect. On to the theater entrance. I wanted to give a high-class kind of hotel look. That means adding pillars, flowers, bushes, and carpets. And I imagine that this theater entrance is directly on the grass. Maybe this theater is in the park. And there you have it, a theater lobby with 2 restrooms, an art gallery, a ticket booth, a small tavern/wine bar, a merchandise stand, an administrative office and first aid room, a fountain, and an entrance leading to the park. If you've enjoyed watching this process or want to see part 1 or part 3, consider hitting the subscribe button. Comment and tell me what map you would like to see next, and don't forget, the links to this map and one with a battle grid are in the description below. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you later.